Hello, my name is Ilan Davis, and I am a student in an online multicultural lit class, and today I will be conducting my reflective essay final. So, for my final, the question that I chose was number 2, which states, in some works of literature, childhood and adolescence are portrayed as times graced by innocence and a sense of wonder. In other works, they are depicted as times of tribulation and terror. Focusing on a single novel or play, explain how its representation of childhood or adolescence shapes the meaning of the work as a whole. So for this question, the text that I decided to choose was Angela's Ashes, which was written by Frank McCourt. And the reason I chose this was because McCourt, since it is an autobiography, McCourt talks about his childhood, and this question reminded me of Angela's Ashes, actually. So, in the novel, Frank McCourt was the main character, and as a child, he had to endure many changes, and he went through many trials and terror. He had a lot going on in his life. So as a young boy, him and his family had to move from New York to Ireland, and it was a big transition for him because it was a different environment, and the culture was different, and who he was surrounded by was different, and he had to experience different changes. His father was not the most responsible parent in the world, so his father would lose his job a lot, and Frank had to end up finding a way to take care of his family because of his father's neglect and how he was not caring for his family. So his childhood was pretty rough, and McCourt's representation of childhood shapes the meaning of the text as a whole because it's written from a child's perspective. And because it's written from a child's perspective, we get first-hand knowledge of what was going on in the book and what was happening. So we know that Frank is a young boy, and he's having to take care of his brothers and younger siblings, and the perspectives range from about 6 years old to adulthood. And as a kid, he was having to raise kids that were younger than him. And by McCourt set his book up like this because I think he was trying to make us have sympathy for this child because he's having to provide for his family, and he's only a little boy. He's having to learn how to be a man before he reaches the stage of even puberty. He's working and transitioning and having to earn money and give it back to his mother. His surroundings were big impacts in his life, which, in his childhood life, which molded him to the character that he was at the end of the book. And as we're reading this, as characters, we're questioning ourselves, wondering why this little boy is taking care of himself at such a young age, because his father is he's neglecting the family. His mother is always either sick or she can't take care of him. There's a lot of problems that he has in his family, and Frank has to learn how to overcome the problems, and he has to end up taking the authoritative position in the house, and he was forced to become the male model in the house over his brothers and other siblings that he had in the house. And the whole book we're wondering why a child had to do so much so much for his family when he's just a child, and because of his irresponsible parents, this is the outcome. And the overall book is just giving us a sense of how life was and how much he went through, and his life of terror reflected into his adult life, and he endured what he endured as a child. Exposure and learning from his father made him become a better character. So now I'm going to do a review, reflections. So the first question is, how have you grown as a reader? So during this course, reading different texts such as A Lesson Before Dying by Ernest Gaines and The Joy Luck Club by Amy Time, they've exposed me to different cultures, and I was able to learn the different backgrounds of different groups of people. I learned from many of the dialect reading journals that we did helped me to analyze my text better, because they taught me how to connect and make reflections to my stories and what I'm reading. Before, I was just reading and I was understanding, but doing the dialect reading journals helped me to actually comprehend. Like, I had to pull certain information from the text in order to understand what was actually happening in the text. The next question was, what is the most important idea/argument that was generated in this semester's discussion, and explain the concept in my own words? So, the most interesting discussion, in my opinion, was the discussion that involved the TED Talk, Danger of a Single Story. This was interesting to me because it talked about race, and that's an issue that I deal with on day-to-day life. So I was shocked hearing this TED Talk. So in the TED Talk, there's this young woman, she discusses how she didn't know that people were, even African American people of darker color, were involved in literature. And when she came to America, her roommate was interested in her culture and her background and where she came from. And her roommate was very shocked at the fact that she was speaking English, and she listened to a lot of the American music and different cultural things that we did. And she was basically judging her because of her looks, and she wasn't thinking about, oh, maybe you do know what I know. So the next question was, what values or beliefs that inform this idea/argument? And I'm supposed to connect to literary theory. So literary theory that I connected this to was the ethnic studies/post-colonial criticism, because it shows you the roots of a culture or ethnicity, and I just felt like this was one of the closest ones. Excuse me. And both of them have a relationship. Both theories have a close relationship because they're directed towards a specific group of African Americans or Africans or any group. So in the TED Talk, the young lady, she discusses how she was judged based on where she was from, and when she came to America, she was from a different ethnic group, and that's what people assumed. They were like, oh, she's different, and they weren't really sure of what information she had. And because of her ethnic background, they assumed that she was speaking a different language. She didn't know any English, and they were shocked to find out that she did. The next question was, how do you think this issue is viewed by those whom you disagree? Well, I have to encounter people like this every day on a daily basis, because the environment in which I go to school in is filled with different cultures and races, and people are often judged based on how they look instead of their intellectual value. They're judged based on their skin color. For example, if you look like you have African descent, they're thinking that you came from Africa and that you speak a different language. That's not the case in many instances. So many people continue to degrade and talk bad about these places, and it's like not what it seems, how they picked it out to be. So how can I and will I use what I've learned in this course outside the walls of our classroom? So outside the walls of the classroom, I'll be sure to use this. This has really helped me to become a better reader, and I will definitely use this in college, and because I want to be a philosophy major, and this is really going to help me reading and analyzing my text. And I really enjoyed this class, and thank you so much for being my teacher.